I want to call the Danville City Commission special call meeting to order. Today is Friday, April the 14th. The time is 10 o'clock a.m. I'm going to deviate from our agenda just briefly, but I want us to pause for a moment of silence in remembrance of the crossing guard in Lexington that was hit out in front of an elementary school, and the person passed away late last night. So I've already contacted 4 of our crossing guards and let them know we were thinking about them. So a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Hate to be in Garrett Morgan Elementary School this morning as those kids found out about their friend, the crossing guard, who was evidently spent lots of time inside the school with the kids. But thank you for that. And then last night we had our first downtown downbeat, and I'm still recuperating, so I was not in attendance, but I've asked Commissioner Holland if she would give us a little brief update on our first downtown downbeat.
Well, I saw most of the commissioners there, and great crowd, great weather. I'd say several hundred folks out there, fantastic band, and they actually had concerts at Wiesinger with Jocelyn, and then also up at Centerworks. So there's going to be another one the first Thursday in May, and they're really trying to get really good name bands. So hope everybody can make it. It was great seeing all the commission and citizens out there. Lots of outdoor eating too. You could hear the music all the way down the road. It was wonderful.
Thank you, ma'am. And the other thing I wanted to assure the commissioners is that I am participating in a mayor-to-mayor Zoom that takes place the second Friday of each month at 9:30. It's sponsored by KLC. I was on this morning. I just got off and left my peers still talking, but I want to share that with the commission so that even though it's entitled Mayor to Mayor, they talk about lots of neat things about their cities, and it would be really interesting for the rest of this commission to be aware of the things that are discussed. For example, they were talking about downtown things today, and they were talking about their summer activities that they have planned throughout the course of the summer. And so I didn't get a chance to share with them about ours, but if I didn't have to leave for this meeting, maybe I would have gotten that opportunity. But I'll share the Zoom link with the rest of the commissioners so you can be abreast of that KLC-sponsored program called Mayor to Mayor. And there's nobody on the program but elected officials. There's no KLC representatives on it, so you can just, let's say it's a safe space to speak and talk about anything you want to talk about. But it's basically about mayors talking to mayors. Okay? So our agenda is that we have our KLC friends back with us today, and they're going to present with us a draft strategic plan. So, Ted, I'll turn the meeting back over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, Commissioners. It's good to see you, and today's a happy day. So we have created what I'm calling the final draft of the plan, and you won't see a lot of difference between this and our last meeting, but our purpose today is to go through it, and if there are any final edits or changes, or there's anything you want me to move around, we can do that before we go to design and layout. And with your permission, my hope is that we get finished this morning, and I'll go ahead and send this on to our folks, and perhaps can come back at a regular commission meeting just to make a brief presentation during one of your regular meetings, if that would be okay with you. We'll work out the details, yes. All right? So I think that this will be a very straightforward process. We have really 4 paragraphs to review, and then to look at the order in which we have put things. We didn't go into a lot of extraneous stuff with our own take on recommendations. You all have already done that work, so I commend you for that and thank you. So we start with the first page, the listing of the members of the Board of Commissioners, the administration, the executive summary. This is just a brief paragraph about what you were doing and why, in creating the vision for the future, looking at the current conditions, and then setting broad goals to move the city forward. Everybody okay with that paragraph? Because this is what I'm going to ask you. We have 4 of them, so I'll make sure you're okay with what I've said. So the purpose of the strategic plan, we had that in the previous presentation. There was no change there. And then each of these sections are exactly as before. I just cleaned some of them up. We had shorthand and some of the acronyms need to be spelled out, but really we talk about what you want to achieve, your vision, which is generally we started talking about a 20-year vision, and then we listed all of the major current projects and ongoing projects in our previous meeting. So then that led us to 7 short-term strategic goals that serve as a launch platform to achieving the 20-year vision. And so those 7 focus areas are the same as before. So the next exercise that we did, we went through and we took each of those 7 areas, and you all helped create these short-term goals and areas to be addressed, and this goes hand in hand with the budget creation process. So you can see each one of them: regionalism, then there were the ones on economic development, infrastructure, parks and recreation, affordable and market rate housing, and workforce development and retention, and then finally communication and transparency with internally and with the public. So everybody okay with that? You remember going through this and the points that you made in the areas of strategic importance? Yes, ma'am.
What page are we on?
Pardon me?
What page are we on?
So what I've done, the pages are not numbered, and I'm sorry.
That's okay, I can count.
So we're on page 4.
Okay. Okay.
Okay?
Took me a minute to find.
Yeah, so I'll slow down just a second, just make sure, are we all on the same page? That's a great question to ask, right?
Okay.
Okay?
2023 to 2026 page.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So the last thing that we did, we're talking about, remember we had the conversation about what are the things that you lend your office, the status of your office, to support within the community and to be partners, and differentiating that with what you actually have the power to do in terms of budget and allocating funds. So I listed those that you identified. Now, on the city budget and timelines, we're on 23-24 budget year. And everybody see the page that we're on? It's the very first one. And there are 4 things that were critical to move forward, and 1 that was critical and or important. The next page looks at the following 2-year budget cycles. And again, the priority have been identified for each of those. And then the final page has the various budget years. So these were, some begin immediately, some last over a longer period of time. And this will give guidance for those 3 particular things. The last thing, or last 2 things, is everybody okay with the timelines and priorities? We're good with that? Okay. So the next paragraph talks about project implementation, tracking, and accountability. So as I was going back through and reviewing and sorting out all the discussions that we had, I did add this, and rather than creating my own kind of spreadsheet, I think that this is something that you can do very easily based upon these projects. There are always challenges when you create a strategic plan and your goals and that sort of thing, implementation and tracking the projects and knowing where they are at any given time is always a challenge. And I think that something that the commission should consider, and I talked with Earl briefly about this too, is some kind of project tracking system where when one of these priorities has been worked on, that gets updated. It would be great if it were available electronically. And one of the challenges is that behind the scenes, within the halls and bowels of city government, things are always going on. Things are constantly moving forward. And then you get a report at your commission meeting, and in between the time that you get that report and you go out on the street and someone asks you, well, what happened to this project? Or were we on this and this or that? It's difficult to know if you're giving the most current information. And so I thought that it will create more transparency, but it also makes you more, you more easily be able to share with your constituents the status of a project at any given time. And so I have recommended that you look into that kind of software. It would also, help Earl when he makes his manager's report. He could just update that, and that would be available to you. It would help staff internally also to know what the status is and what was the last thing done. So the advantages are really simple. It's when you get questions about it, you don't have to guess or think back, well, we talked about that 2 months ago at a commission meeting. I don't know if they've done anything or not. Having been in that situation, it's really, that is an uncomfortable position. And then you want accurate information. And then it also helps the city manager to be able to provide complete reports whenever you need them. But there are some cons to it too, and that is the cost, determining the frequency of the updates, the commitment of time and resources of staff to update their projects and determining how frequently to do that. And the system is only as good as the people putting the information in. So I want to leave that there unless you object and want me to take it out. Is there anyone that sets their hair on fire at all? I do think it's something worth exploring. All right. And the last thing that I want to say about this, you've created a bold and ambitious plan, I think. It's very progressive. It's very forward-thinking. And I think that it really aligns with when I would come to Danville when I was a young kid, and I would see the sign and it said Danville, City of Firsts. And I really believe that if you can implement this plan, that you can maintain the status that Danville has enjoyed for so many years. You've had great leadership. You're viewed as one of America's best small towns. And I do believe that this vision sets you on a path to move that forward and maintain that status. And so with that, that is the plan. So does anyone have any questions at all? Is there anything that you feel like that we should include we haven't, or anything we included that you wish that we would take out?
I guess, how do we contact you? I think we'll have to I'd like to go through this line by line and read it and give feedback, I guess. Would
Yep.
we do that as a group, give feedback at a commission meeting, or email you?
How do you all want to do it?
That was part of the whole discussion today, is to just literally look at it together as a group at one time as a working session, right?
Oh, okay.
That was the target. So he's given, this is the draft, and so if you all want to dive into every page, every line, we can do that for a few minutes.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
After the meeting, between now and when he brings it back as a final version, what I'd like to do is get your comments back. The easiest thing is just send them to me, and I'll get them to him. That way you're not trying to, so you can just redline or just provide specific comments over the next couple weeks. what we'd like to do is bring you back May the 8th
Yeah.
and present this in a publishable way, so that it's, tidied and really organized, not just text, not
Yeah.
just a Word file.
This has not been prettied up and proofed and everything. I wanted to make sure before we got into all our time and resources at KLC doing all of that you're okay with where we are with it. And we can wait a little bit. The 8th deadline should be
Self-imposed.
okay.
Yeah, that's self-imposed. I mean, that
Yeah.
was just our target. We can do that
We'll see
anytime.
what we can do. But I don't want you to feel rushed or uncomfortable with the contents. I wanted to present them today. This aside from spell checking and editing, that kind of stuff, there won't be any changes to content. And I found what happens if we don't do this step, then I'll go back to our layout and design about 8 times and make changes and print new versions. And so I want to make sure that you're satisfied before we add pictures and that sort of stuff too.
Okay,
Okay?
it sounds good to me.
We've got plenty of time. How much, I don't want this to feel
Yeah.
rushed.
Right,
Yeah.
we can literally dive into page 2 and start with
Yes.
every bullet point, if that's what the direction y'all want to take today.
Absolutely.
I was going to mention the part that you put in, which is, I think, a great idea. Because sometimes I do feel a little out of the loop when somebody asks me how something's going, and I go, yeah, I'm glad to get back to you on that one. And, it's just because we got a lot going on, and I'm old and I can't remember stuff, so I think that would be a great idea
Yeah.
to do that. Do you know, have you had any dealings with that kind of software?
Well, not specifically in the form that I'm talking about, but there's software out there, where citizens can even go and report potholes.
Yeah, we've got
And,
that.
they can get real-time status of where that is, if that's been done or not. And I'm making an assumption that it can be purchased, but I don't know.
That's a good idea, because that really is, remember, we've done like city engineer reports and
Yeah.
just put Word files and just like 2 sentences tied to projects on a regular basis. We've tried everything in the world. And having an online spot where y'all can bring it up real quick and just check on a specific thing, that theoretically is updated in real time almost. I could see that really, we just got to find it. That is a good idea. That is a different approach than we've tried. Probably should. That's a good point.
It's just 25 after 10, just barely. And I was of the assumption that the commission was going to be here for at least a couple hours. So if you want to start with, I numbered my pages, there's
There are 9
pages.
total, I think.
9 pages inside the 2 covers.
Yep.
And we could just go page
Let's
by
do
page,
that.
category by category, just to sort of see where we are with this thing. And I would say start on page 1 with the executive summary. If there are any, this is my page 1 inside the cover. It's got city of,
And you can
Yeah.
see it up here. That's the page that
Yeah.
we're talking about.
who's the record? Is that Jason right there?
Needs to be enlarged.
Hey, Jason, can you show 1 page at a time? It puts 2 up? Oh, okay, that's what, okay.
I do have a
enlarge
couple of
print?
copies if you want. I can hand those out.
Yeah, we do have a couple more copies.
I understand.
I see you move up
Okay.
front. That's not gonna help either, is it?
So let's just start. And we'll go through it. So I want to start with the Board of Commissioners. Do I have all of your names correct? Okay. Earl, I assume you are you. Is
Yeah.
that okay?
I get called all kinds of things.
I'm going for the early wins. That's what I'm looking for. All right, so in the executive summary, are there any edits or any changes that you would like to make at all with that? Any concerns?
We're good. Let's go on.
Are we okay? All right.
Purpose?
The purpose of the strategic plan, the commission desires to create a strategic work plan to identify the commission's goals and budget priorities to move the city forward. The strategic work plan will guide the mayor, commissioner, city manager, and staff in the development of the city's budget. The city will continually evaluate its progress and modify the priorities as needed to accomplish its goals. Everybody okay with that?
Sorry. That's a strategic plan is something that I think some people have a problem with because they think we're getting ready to do it immediately. And so it causes all this consternation. I wish there was a way we could, I don't know, inform, educate, or, let people know that this is just the grand plan. If we had everything we wanted, we'd do this, so.
Well, I run into that, Kevin, a lot, and what I tell folks when we do community-wide plans is that this is not set in concrete. Circumstances could change tomorrow, and you'd have to reprioritize or change something. It's a roadmap, and sometimes there's a wreck, right? And you got to do a detour. Something doesn't work. Let's strike. We're not going to do that. So, and that is something that you all need to be prepared to answer folks' questions. But, well, I thought you all were going to do so-and-so. We've talked about that. We've looked at the cost of it. It's just not going to fit this budget year. We're going to evaluate it next year. If it works, great. If it doesn't, we're going to move on to something else that we can do. So that's what I would share with you about using the word strategic and work plan.
Yeah, it's a long range, it's a working plan. I was trying to think of another word.
It's a visionary document. It's designed to inspire a vision of what direction we want to go in generally. Right.
There's also this for you to think about, and you can use whatever you want to take away from this. We started out with a really broad stroke. Thinking 20 years ahead is a big challenge, and so I wanted to have that discussion first without any consideration and thought about all these projects you got going and all the things what do you want it to be in the long term? And then we just backed up and started looking at current projects and then what we want to do next year and then in 4 or 5 years. And to me, that is a terrific way to set the city on the path to accomplish the 3 things that you said were really important, address the 3 areas that are really important to be successful. So that's really my comments and response about strategic plan. Everybody okay with that? Okay. What does the city commission want to achieve? And these were the 4 things that you told me during our very first session. A better understanding of each other's respective goals, what you wanted to achieve. Establish some kind of funding priorities over the next 5 years. I heard loud and clear that you wanted some kind of timelines, estimated timelines, and then the creation and implementation of the City Commission's strategic work plan. That's what you want to achieve. Is there anything you want to take out or modify or add to that? We good? Everybody okay? Comfortable with it? Okay, good. All right. So the very first exercise that we had was, tell me the top 3 or 4 areas that will need to be addressed to get you where you want to be in 2043. And you identified 3. The city really needs to continuously upgrade and retool economic development and infrastructure. We want to create a quality of life that will last for generations. And then if we're going to do that, we've got to have an adequate workforce, and we have to have places for them to live. So those are the 3 guiding principles and areas of interest over the next 20 years to get where you want to be. Everybody still okay with that? Excellent. All right. So then we backed up. We zoomed way back to see the big picture, and then we zoomed in to start talking about what do we have underway right now. And we spent quite a bit of time going through a list of projects. And so what I would like to do, if it's okay, I don't want to read this whole list of 20 or however many projects it is. I would like to take a couple of minutes for you all to do so. And if we've left anything out at all, you question anything, then you can let me know and we'll make the modifications. Okay? Okay, have you had a chance? Need another minute or so?
What were the water issues? That's one I can't remember what's talking about. But just making
Stormwater?
sure- Oh, stormwater, okay.
Yeah, so that should be footnoted to say address stormwater issues.
I'll change that.
Yeah.
Let me find it. There it is. Did you have it, Rick?
So we got collaborating on housing and homelessness issues. Do we need to be a little bit more specific on who we're collaborating with? Or?
My recollection of the conversation was that there are, if I'm not mistaken, 4 separate agencies that are addressing these issues in one fashion or another, and that it was important that those 4, that the city encouraged those 4 to collaborate and work together and make sure they're not duplicating services.
Sure.
And for the city to work with them and partner and help, convene conversations that they need to happen, but that you all wanted to be engaged in some way in addressing the housing and homelessness
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
So I can expand on that a little bit if you want me to in the plan to
Well, I'm going to
clarify
ask
it.
my fellow commissioners, I know where it came from, but if I was just looking at this, not having the discussion, I go collaborate with who?
I understand.
Yeah.
I'll add that in there. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
For more clarity?
And I guess on the parks and recreation, I don't really remember horseshoe pits, but maybe I just dreamed that up. Or, I
It,
just. I
it was
didn't-
mentioned twice.
Oh, was it? Oh, well,
Can we bring back the lawn darts, the
Yeah.
pointy ones with the metal ends?
With the sharp pointy
Yeah,
ends that
absolutely,
I
yeah.
used to throw at my sister,
lawn
yeah.
darts. I mean, I know it says aquatic center, but that sort of, is it an aquatic center or is it a pool,
Okay.
but anyway.
So, well,
Yeah,
let's
I
talk
think- I
about that
think
for
the
a second,
discussion was
Donna.
just,
Let's not just skip over it. So,
Yeah.
is everybody, we talked a lot about the aquatic center, that came up several times, but if it's broader than just the aquatic center, I'm good with that. Tell me how you want to say it.
Well, I think the thing about parks and recreation projects, we were trying to identify some
Right.
small-scale things that could be accomplished that didn't require a lot of money, a lot of time. And these were things that we had heard from different people throughout the community. And that's why they're listed. There's probably others that could be listed here, but these were ones that we actually mentioned ourselves.
I remember pickleball.
Well, I debated whether to put that level of specificity into
I
the
see
3
what
things, but I thought that it was good because you did identify some very specific things that you already had in mind. This is not an exhaustive list. I didn't take it that way, but, okay, so the first thing, I'll make sure I get all of these. So the first thing that I'm going to do is address your comment, Rick. I am going to add the collaboration among the agencies with the city. Is that fair? I think everybody agreed with that.
Yes.
Are they city agencies, though? They're not really, but the community agencies.
Community
Okay.
agencies, yeah.
Yes.
Various agencies within the community
Yeah.
is probably how I would phrase that. Various agencies within the community.
Yep.
Because community agencies have a connotation with our budget. We don't necessarily want to link those two things.
Yeah.
And then the second thing, I want to make sure, is everybody satisfied with the Parks Master Plan where it says Aquatic Center, and then underneath that with the Parks and Recreation projects that we have listed, those three things? Everybody okay with that?
Oh, I think that when I read, if I was just reading aquatic center, it sounds like we're building an indoor. I would prefer just writing aquatics dash maybe pool and splash pads.
Right.
What do you guys think?
That's what I was saying. I think the aquatic center means this big, huge, elaborate Somerset Aquatic Center. you know,
Indoor, yeah.
Indoor, or maybe not even, just that huge
Sure.
center. I think we're more focused on pools and
Yeah.
splash pads and
A
things.
center has different meanings for different people.
Yeah.
And so say pool and
A pool or splash pad.
splash pad opportunities.
Yeah, and we got to be real careful. We really haven't made any decisions on aquatics. We're still discussing and debating them, so I think the suggested changes would be good.
Gotcha. Good.
And on the drug, say back here. Do we need to say collaborate, or it says drug use prevention and treatment? Again, wouldn't we be working with
Yes.
others?
And how do you want to state that? Just collaborate with community
With
agencies
agencies
and organizations?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably put a hyphen after drug use,
Yeah.
because we're not trying to promote drug use. We're trying to prevent it and
Yeah.
treat it.
Right,
Right.
Drug use prevention.
You're right.
Well,
Little subtle nuance there in your
It's
head.
like, well,
at some of our, at some of our agencies, it's important that we use them, right? All right, let's go on. The last thing on page 3 is 23 to 26, 7 short-term strategic goals. Any suggested changes to those?
Covered a lot of ground.
All right. I'm just trying to keep the clock, keep the wagon moving, that's all. Page 4, strategic area.
So just for clarity's sake, and let me make sure that we're on the same page. So we have 7 areas.
Yes.
And then I took each one of those, and you all helped create a list of either goals or projects or things that would fall under each of those. So that's how I organized that. All right, so the first one was regionalism. Housing was mentioned, Parks and Rec, a trained workforce, economic development falls under regionalism, collaboration, and you didn't specify who, but later in the plan, it does talk about collaborating with the county and the other cities and start that process and then go beyond boundaries and do more regional cooperation. So it's explained a little bit later, but it's hanging there. So would you want me to add the clarity here too? Or are you okay with that?
I'd say as long as it's in there personally, but.
Okay? Anybody? Okay. Regional tourism, transportation systems, which were road and trail systems, rail and aviation. See past the county and city boundaries and work with adjoining cities and counties. And then last, we're all in this together mentality. Everybody good with that? Okay. In the area of economic development, downtown revitalization, collaboration with the new EDA and the economic EDC to make progress. Did I state that correctly? Okay. New business development, and we talked about that, small, large, all kinds. We need to encourage entrepreneurship, small business development, and then larger types of businesses as well. Using quality of life as an economic development tool and linking those. And then here's the point, starting by collaborating with Boyle County and other cities in the county and then branch out regionally. Everybody okay with the economic development goals? Okay. Infrastructure. So in one place it said airport, and then in another bullet point there was one about just aviation in general. So they're kind of the same, but not exactly. So I included both of them. Expand water and sewer capacity, fix stormwater issues, the cemetery pavilion, streets and roads, landscapes, or streetscapes, sorry, safe sidewalks, code enforcement to address blighted properties. I'll change that. And then there was some discussion about the east-west corridor and north-south corridor. I didn't do any further identification of those because I didn't want to get them, I didn't want to confuse things. So, everybody okay with the way that's stated? Or does it need additional clarity? We good? All right. Parks and Recreation. I will change building an aquatic center to,
Address swimming opportunities. Say it like that. Or something.
address swimming
Swimming.
and
needs,
splash pad opportunities. How's
or-
that?
And access. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Then in Parks and Recreation, this was under the big set of goals too, the master plan, and then specifically pickleball courts were mentioned, tennis courts, and the horseshoe pits. Jenny Rogers Community Center, secure funding for the Trails Alliance, neighborhood parks are important, fairgrounds, more collaboration between schools, parks, and businesses, and that was where we got into the discussion about all the connectors within the community. Partnership with Center College on the indoor pool. So I wasn't sure exactly. I assume that's a project y'all have been talking about working on together. Is that correct? Or is this an expectation that you want to take out?
Center's building a natatorium.
Yep.
And the idea with the Parks and Rec master plan was to work with Center to make sure that was open and available to the schools, for example, for their competitive teams.
Yep.
Trying to create a partnership with Center and the local schools on access. And then just generally what access can be garnered from it to prevent the city from the demand being created to the city to accommodate indoor swimming
Gotcha.
at a broader level.
Okay. All right, good. Exploring grant opportunities, and then engage the aging population to get more involved in community activities. Everybody good with those?
I'm good with that one.
Once again, a little clarification maybe on fairgrounds. Is that developing what used to be called the fairgrounds? Because if I just look at it blankly, I'm thinking that's a Boyle County function.
Right.
We're not doing the fair.
Right, do fairgrounds facility redevelopment,
Is that a former facility or part of the current facility?
former fairgrounds.
There we go.
Yeah,
Former fairgrounds redevelopment.
yeah.
Okay, good.
Isn't that better, Rick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, just to look at it blatantly, it's like, are you guys in the fair business now?
Yeah, I had a similar reaction there. I felt that too, but that was good to identify.
Yeah.
Don't you want to be in the fur business?
I'd almost want to put, like, engage the adult and aging population. I mean, it seems, I don't know what they think, but,
What do you mean, the last bullet?
yeah.
Yeah, that's okay, yeah.
Because a lot of the parents and adults are really wanting to get more involved in Parks and Rec
Okay.
as well.
I think that's a nice way to put it.
Okay.
It makes it for more adults besides just those in my generation. So that was good.
Listen, our self-esteem is important.
That's right.
All right, everybody okay with Parks and Rec? Okay. Affordable and market rate housing, create more housing options, especially for senior citizens, and that was specifically mentioned. Previously, we addressed it a little more broadly in terms of all the different kinds of housing, but, all right. Then work together on housing and homelessness, and I'll go back to, I think, was what Rick said. We'll specify the community agencies to collaborate. Let me ask you a question to clarify in my own mind. I want to be sure that I get this correct. When we say collaboration with community agencies on housing, to address housing issues and homelessness, is that, I know we talked about those agencies collaborating, so they're not duplicating, but did you intend to say also that the city would collaborate with them as partners, or is that just a separate thing?
Oh, I think it's
No, I
important
think-
for us
yeah.
to be. part of it,
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
And I think you take out the number 4. Because I think there's probably more than just 4 working on that.
Okay. Bring together the communities,
Or different, yeah.
different housing agencies, all right?
And Ted,
Yes.
someplace in that section, we need to put the word workforce. You got affordable market rate housing, but we need to have the word workforce, because affordable oftentimes in this community has a negative connotation to people.
Okay. Tell me,
You
tell
can
me.
put it
yep.
right there beside market rate housing, put slash, put workforce. Be simple, I think.
In the heading you're talking about?
In the heading, right, uh-huh.
Okay, so put affordable, market rate, and workforce?
Yes, sir. Just another slash, uh-huh.
Yep.
Would you also want to add to the first bullet point, especially for senior citizens and workforce? Or is that too redundant?
No, I thought, to me, it's not. Because the broad one is the title, the smaller bullets is really where the action takes place, right?
Okay. Oh, add a bullet?
We can. Do you want to do that? That would probably add more clarity to it. Let it be its own standalone bullet.
Okay.
Okay.
Workforce,
Workforce housing.
workforce housing.
That needs to create workforce housing or expand it or more specific on workforce housing?
Yeah, we got, yeah.
Well-
More in general.
Yeah.
Let me think a second. So we could say,
It's-
develop a more robust housing stock for workforce development or workforce.
I was,
we're just
the
gonna
word I
assist
came
with
up
that.
with was housing infrastructure, because
okay.
in terms of businesses, so you have to have a certain style housing if you're trying to recruit the younger generation, for example, versus senior housing. Those are potentially two different things. And so stylistically, and so we have to have a diverse set of housing infrastructure. Housing stock is a good word too, so that we can adequately recruit small business, adequately recruit new entrepreneurs or workforce or whatever. I think we struggle to describe that, so we say affordable housing, we say workforce housing, but really it's a diverse housing stock.
And we're gonna assist with the development of that.
Yes.
We want to promote it.
Yeah, right.
And we want to
Yeah.
try
We wanna
to
actually
figure out
build it.
how we can encourage it.
Kevin might build some of them, but that's good though. Well, this might be the best exercise in the whole process, because we're really getting down to some real
Absolutely.
specifics, so that's good. So workforce development and retention?
Give me just a minute, Mayor. Let me
I'm
write.
taking
I'm
notes.
still
I'm
writing. Sorry about that.
Well, I said 12 o'clock, but if we get out at 11:30, that's fine too, if we get everything covered. Some people's lunch starts at 10:30, so, I've already passed their lunch hour, so I'm sorry. Take time to do it right. While he's writing, Commissioners, I have another commercial for you guys. On the 27th of April at 12 o'clock noon, Mayor Bernie Jenkins from Georgetown is going to be visiting our city. And I would like to invite some of you all to at least be available to meet and greet him. April the 27th, a Thursday, at 12 o'clock noon, Mayor Bernie, B-U-R-N-E-Y, Jenkins from Georgetown. I just got a confirmation that he's coming to Danville on that date. And again, we want to afford you all a chance to say hello, ask him some questions or let him ask you some questions. We just can't have, we can have Ashley help us with that thing about less than 3 in the room at the same time.
Noon, right?
Noon on the Thursday, the 27th. And I've also asked him to bring his city administrator along, but if he's hired one by then. Okay? Ted, are you ready?
Yes, I just concluded the sidebar, Judge. All right. Workforce development and retention. So job opportunities for youth was discussed, partnering with the public schools and BCTC we talked about career paths. Downtown connection or connectors is what that should be. To Center College and BCTC, which would provide greater access. Need a trained workforce. And then there was a discussion about city employees, be retaining the current city employees, reviewing the compensation packages for city employees, then provide and implement training regarding ethics, diversity, equity, inclusion, and hospitality, succession planning for city staff, and then support or fund Shepherd's House and other community agencies that address substance abuse issues. And then looking back over this, I think I will move that last bullet point up about 3 and put the city employees together in one section. That's a little confusing for me too. Is that okay?
Yes.
We should also think about doing, calling it workforce recruitment, development, and retention. I mean, is that not true?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a demand for, say, doctors in the community. We don't have an unemployed stock of doctors necessarily in the community, for example. So that's the easiest thing to point to. And then I was reminded that we need to make sure our mics are on.
What?
We need to make sure our microphones are turned on when we talk, just FYI.
Okay.
Say something.
Are we good?
Yeah, just in reference to this, and it has nothing to do with what you're doing here, but for myself, fellow commissioners. Went to the physical court meeting last Tuesday, and BCTC was there, and a lot of these things that we're addressing, they're proactive on. So when they meet with us, I think you'll be kind of impressed what they're doing, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Anything else under workforce development and retention? All right. Let me make my notes.
Wow.
All right. Communication and transparency. So you all talked about the many silos that exist within the community, and it's important for the community organizations and citizens to work together. Coordination of community events calendar, and I know that that's underway if it's not already finished, my understanding, which also goes with the landing page for the entire community, not just the city's website, but a link to all those organizations. Evaluate the city's social media presence, engage citizens through multiple means of communication. The creation of a city newsletter was mentioned. A Dear Danville newspaper column was mentioned as examples of what might be possible. And then just getting the word out about the city and what's going on, share all that's going on, including the good and the not so good news. I think the statement was bad news, and I thought we might want to share bad news, so we'll say not so good. How about that? All right, everybody good? So then we turn to a talk about direct budget impacts. And so the EDA and EDC, economic development umbrella was mentioned. Safety, which include the fire department for more staffing and a new fire station in the future, and the police department, major renovations to the police station. Communications, bring all media platforms together, improve social media presence, prevent conflicts in scheduling. That will lead to. Okay. Infrastructure, water and sewer, parks and rec. The statement was made, do the most with what we have. Quality of life infrastructure that directly benefits the city's current residents. And there was a discussion about taking care of people who already live here, that attracts people who will want to live here. Retaining current employees and reviewing the compensation package, and I'll add current city employees. Okay. And then the comprehensive land use plan update was mentioned. Everybody good with direct budget impacts?
Ted, should we put anything in there about the project progress software you were talking about?
Can,
Would
if
that
you
go
want,
there?
if you want to do that. Is that okay with everyone?
And that would also benefit communication and transparency.
All right, good. All right. If everybody's ready, then we'll dive into these next 3 pages, which are the budget and timelines. And we'll just go through them one more time and make sure that we've captured what you intended and that we don't cause the staff to have a heart attack with 90 projects on the plate starting July 1, all right? Okay, so in the upcoming budget year, the priority projects were the coordination, collaboration, cooperation, and communication, and the city and county to have one voice. Then complete the current projects by year's end. And there were several that were, I think, listed that were already underway that you're trying to conclude for this budget year or this fiscal year. The community website and landing page, and the comp plan update, and then one that was critical and or important facilities. So complete the current projects, then inventory and what you have, the status of those, and prioritize the city's facilities as a whole. Everybody good with those? Any changes? Okay, those are what we agreed on last time, I believe. All right, good. Okay, the next page looks at timeline for 2024 through 2026 budget years. So the critical and important ones were the employee compensation package update, the strategic plan for parks and recreation and aquatics, and I will take out center. Yes, thank you, Sarah. Support strong economic development organization, and you all provide support for 3 full-time employees, I believe is that correct? Okay. Then code enforcement and addressing blighted properties, making sure those are addressed and then identifying them beforehand. Safe sidewalks and walkability in complete streets. I do want to mention, I think I mentioned this maybe last time, that those funding cycles are opening up for safe streets and safe sidewalks and complete streets. Those cycles are opening. And then last was training and implementation for all city staff, the certificates, the diversity, equity, and inclusion were the things that were mentioned.
Would you put on, right beside that in parentheses, BCTC?
Beside what?
On that last one?
Yes.
Training, just put in parentheses, BCTC.
Gotcha.
We got to be encouraging our employees to take some of those classes and assist with the paying of it.
Gotcha.
Cost of
Okay.
some of the
Yeah,
classes.
sure. Okay. Everybody good? Anything that we need to add? Okay, so the last one was, there were 3 that are various budget years, and as you can get to them, first one was to engage the Department of Education to work with the KSD campus. Does that provide enough clarity?
I would say for future land use or something.
Okay, for future land use?
Yeah.
Okay? Then an important or want to build a new fire station.
Do we want to put where? Since we just built a new one, but
I don't remember when did you come into office? So at the time when we were talking about locating just to dive into it real quick,
2021.
which is, 30 seconds worth of conversation. The idea when we were relocating the downtown station, there was significant work done with the fire department to identify strategic response, timing of response, response times. All of those things came into play. And what we identified was that the physical barriers around town. We have Clark's Run, then you have the railroad tracks. And so the idea is that as population demand increased on the west side of the railroad tracks, which is across the viaduct, then we strategically, over time, the city would need to have emergency equipment both south of Clark's Run, north of Clark's Run, and east of the railroad tracks and west of the railroad tracks. And then as the community continues to grow, both to the west and to the north, the idea is to locate a fire station west of the railroad tracks. And then as that dialogue added with the fairgrounds purchase, there was the need, one of the drivers of that acquisition was the need to locate a fire station on the north end of that site at somewhere down the road. So if you go out there specifically adjacent to the animal shelter. was
Northwest
the-
side.
Which was the west of the railroad tracks, access to the bypass. And so strategically, that is the best place when we did our response times to serve the broadest footprint of the community was that location. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay.
Okay.
And I was here at that time, and I remember that discussion. Boyle County also is looking at that area, so there might be an opportunity for collaboration of EMS and fire station there.
Yes, and that's exactly the conversation we've had. There was a lot of dialogue about if there was a need for an EMS facility, maybe that could be a co-located site to complement both of us. There were some other ideas with EMS, and it's one of the conversations that we hope to continue to have with the county judge, with mayor. I think we're going to try to meet and go over some of those co-agency things that we're required to work on together. And then, maybe you have a workshop through the budget cycle at some point to where you sit down with the county and the city commission and you all talk through things like that.
So is there any more detail that you want me to add to that line at all, or just leave it like it is, and as it presents itself, as the need presents itself, then that's where the new fire station would go? How do you want it to say? Is it okay like it is?
In northwest area of our town? Because I think that's what he's defining for us. And then the other thing we could add to that is a slash an EMS location. And that should be a part of the same discussion, I would think. Because we have had that discussion several
Okay,
times.
and so you said something for EMS station.
Oh, just the northwest area of town, either.
In northwest, okay, so building a fire station in the northwest side of town, and then something about an EMS center.
Yeah, I just put a question mark about the EMS location. It should be a part of that discussion.
Okay.
Because we'd have to have city and county
Gotcha.
decide that one together.
Gotcha. All right, great. And then, after much debate, hiring an assistant to the city manager. All right,
Yeah, the time frame on that, was 25
yeah.
and 25.
Uh-huh. There was a song, no, that was 25, sorry. So, everybody okay with that? We're good?
Yeah.
Before I go to the last two paragraphs, I just want to check back in and
I
make
want to
sure.
take it back to page 5.
Okay, Mayor.
Number 6, workforce development and retention.
Okay,
I just need this explained to me, I think. Downtown connection to Center College and BCTC.
What the discussion was, as I recall, was making it easier for people within the community that were trying to improve their education or get a certificate or whatever it was, giving them easier access, whether it was walking, biking, driving, but it was mostly the connectors with the hiking or walking and biking, was my understanding.
Oh, so getting them to come downtown. Downtown folks to go, well, yeah, good. All right, Rick, help me out with that one.
I don't know.
Downtown connection to Center College and BCTC. I'm just thinking about somebody picking it up and reading that. Say it again, ma'am.
Yes, connectors.
Oh, okay. Connectors. So you've been sitting here all morning just to tell me that one important thing. That's why I love the 911 people, right?
Yeah.
Good, connectors, okay.
Okay, is everybody good with that? I'll just make sure.
Yeah, I just, because
Yeah,
it's about putting it out there so people can understand it, but
exactly.
if we don't understand it, how they gonna understand it? Okay, thank you. Ron.
Well, you know, people are mind readers, Mayor, whether you want them to be or not. If they don't know it, they just make it up. Is that right?
My mind reading is limited to my age group.
I understand.
You understand that statement?
All right.
Ted, can we go back to hire an assistant city manager? I thought we kind of took that off the table. I guess I missed something there. That,
I'll place it wherever you all want it or not at all.
well, Earl was talking about the police chief or whoever the need may be to give them that power specifically. And that kind of makes sense to me. So I
Well,
don't
to
know what
describe
you
it
all
again-
think, but I thought we kind of took that off.
So, to describe it again, if we want help in something, rather than having another layer to administer what we'd like, what my habit is, specifically, my habit is to rely on the police chief for police issues. So if there's an issue tied to some sort of law enforcement, I'm not going to ask an assistant city manager to intervene. I'm just going to ask the city,
They went to the right.
the police chief to fill that role on that issue. If there's an issue tied to the utility, I'm going to go to Marshall and have Marshall fill that role on that issue. So I as an individual, I rely on those department heads to fulfill that role. The then traditional things that assistant city manager would be used for, I'm going to rely on Melanie, I'm going to rely on Ashley, I'm going to rely on the existing staff to do those things that they are tailored towards. I believe that you need staff farther down the food chain. I believe, like one of the things that I'm going to ask for is to add, and Josh isn't advocating for it at all, but what I'd like to do is add an EIT to the engineering wing. Because the stormwater program, for him to do, he took 2 days to do the stormwater permit when he needed to be doing some other things. And like, that's in a purely administrative, that's a technical thing that an EIT training into our system. And then if we add that staff at that layer, then whenever Josh retires someday, he's gonna be here forever, then you have somebody that naturally fits into the engineering side, which is a harder position to, it's where that historic information really is necessary, things like that. And same thing for the police chief. So you've talked about, we've added a lot of administrative support for the police chief. Sergeants, captains, things. We've structured the detectives a little bit differently. To me, that adds leadership down the food chain farther so that you have better transitioning up through your career too. So like, I just don't believe in top heavy. I believe in pushing it down.
So why don't we restate that then? To say that we're going to, one of our important work tools is to review the city's organizational structure to include the review of all top-level positions.
That's perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it sounds perfect.
that is perfect.
My question to that, in that, I understand that, been there, but it's just, do you have the list, like, if something happened to you today, what would happen?
under
Would it be
state
just
statute.
everybody in charge? You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Which-
state statute means you all have to appoint an interim.
Right.
And so what though is, the problematic thing is that when you have an assistant city manager, then you have someone that can interject, can pollute the work environment sometimes in an unhealthy way. And we've talked about that before together. And that creates this illusion that they're automatically in charge if something ever happened. And you don't want that. The commission, because this commission may not be the commission in 5 years.
Right.
That makes that decision then. So you don't want to create a situation where it's awkward for them at the top to select transition for the city,
I mean,
right?
I
Yeah.
understand, I agree with your department heads. I'm just saying, I can't think of the name of it.
So we've got to replace the chart you're talking about.
Yeah.
The hierarchy, we need to update that.
Yes.
Yes, and Ashley and I have talked about that a little bit, and we'll follow up on that, so that you're, particularly in an emergency. If I'm out of town, the mayor's out of town, who's the next in command?
That's what I'm saying.
That chart we need to update.
Let me answer her question for her. When you made that comment about, excuse me, about who to turn to, I always say we turn to the city clerk. I always would turn to you as the city clerk, right? Now, whether that's legal or not, that's just my thinking as a commissioner. But I think if we go back through when you do this, look at this organizational pattern, we probably need to address that question.
Well, and
Whether it's an
I,
assistant city manager or whatever, yeah.
Well, we have that resolution that stands, I'm not sure, from years ago, that has that little chart. I mean, Tony would remember it, Bridget
Yeah.
May, Rebecca. So I don't know if it's updated or not.
I like the idea of the administrative fallback position. To me, under the city manager form of government, should be the city clerk, frankly. And I think that we don't want to unintentionally diminish what that position is
No.
in our community.
No.
Right? And I think, you know,
We need to make sure.
and I'm not trying to say that just because Donna held the position, but as a staff member, I know when I was in a different role, and Donna was city clerk, I relied on Donna to help in that intermission, right? We've talked about that before, and I think that is proper, given how the text in the state law. To me, city clerk being an appointed office, working directly for the commission, right? It's a different role than other city positions. And so we do need to evaluate that hierarchy in terms of the emergency response especially. But in terms of just turnover in general, I'd prefer, as a citizen, not to have that assistant city manager position, because that pollutes this current commission's ability to make a decision sometimes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I have substituted language that just says, review the city's organizational chart.
Can we change the date to sooner?
Yes, you may.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we'll propose changes like we did last year. So remember, last year we did the utility admin, or the year, whichever year it was. We will do that again, and we'll invest time to make sure we're presenting a total view of that. We need to make sure our management team's right. We need to make sure of all those things.
So is it,
We'll for sure do that this year.
okay, so it is possible to get that done by the.
23, 24, yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what we should say there.
I'll put estimated completion year 2024. Is that okay with everyone?
Yep.
Yes.
Everybody comfortable with that? Okay. All right, so we're down to the last paragraphs. I've already discussed the project implementation, tracking, and accountability piece. Is everybody okay with that?
I am, and I would like to keep on there the completed projects for some timeline, just to see,
Yes.
at least me personally.
Yeah. I think I shared this with you. We did some work in Hazard, and in 2019, they started posting every year. They put a zip banner up, and it had their whole list of projects completed, which was really fascinating. So you might want to look at something like that too.
I
It's
think
very
the city
visual.
needs that. I mean, we just need to be more transparent to our citizens too, and I have this on.
Okay. So is my summary statement rah-rah enough to reflect really, and I think this is a reflection of the, most folks that live here. I think they're very proud of the town in which they live, and they want to continue the tradition as being one of America's best small towns. And I think y'all have worked hard to make that vision come true. Everybody okay with it?
Brought a little
Yes.
tear to my eye, actually.
I've got some tissues here. See me after the meeting.
Uh,
All
Ted-
right.
Ted, I'm going to ask the commission to agree upon another date.
Yes.
We've sort of given you a deadline of May the 8th, our next commission meeting, to present this final draft. And we've left ourselves open to send questions, comments, suggested changes to you. So let's set a deadline. If we want to propose some changes, not just the commission, but the city manager, and really, excuse me, we didn't take advantage of our department heads being here this morning, but how do we get to where the department heads can communicate to the city manager by a certain date, and we can communicate to the city manager by a certain date to get stuff to you so that you can meet the May the 8th deadline?
May I ask you a question
Yes, sir.
from my chair? Does the commission meet once a month or twice a month?
Twice.
Is it possible to do it the second meeting instead of the first meeting? Because in my view, you already have this, so everybody kind of already knows what the marching orders are as they prepare the budget. Is that okay, Earl?
Yeah, so what I was going to suggest too, so that we can, any changes for the budget, could we get your all's comments and we can list it during the city manager's report and talk about it then on the 24th? So the commission meets April 24th at a regular meeting. We'll have a dialogue similar to this at that meeting to make sure y'all have no further comments. We'll even have this document that we'll talk from maybe, and then that'll be on the 24th.
We might want to find another date. If we open this up for discussion on the 24th, it might be like opening up a discussion about to build a pool or not to build a pool.
Well, we don't want to do that, and that won't be the
Might take a long
context of the
time.
meeting, but we will ask for your feedback at that meeting and make sure individually you all have no comments.
Could we try to do a special meeting on the 24th, say at 5 o'clock, 4:30, just for this item, so we can narrow our focus and it won't lengthen the time of the regular 5:30 meeting?
It's up to you all.
I'm asking
That's fine
commission,
with me.
yeah. Because I think about staff, you know, we have commission meetings and we go at 5:30, and staff's been here since 8 o'clock that morning, and they come back the next morning at 8 o'clock. So I'm trying to think of some ways we can do things, still have our input, but at the same time, not lengthen the course of the day for the staff, okay? Keep staff morale as high as we can. Can we do that on the 24th?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll do that.
And adding
4:30.
to that, that would also be very helpful to me. I want to make sure that you all have adequate time to have your final say. I really do, because this is not my plan, it's your all's plan. But I also have a staff that I have to depend on at KLC to get all the layout and design stuff done. And we don't want to have to go back and do that 3 or 4 times. So I think that if you're okay with extending the
Well,
completion date.
next commission meeting.
Oh, April.
well,
And I-
what I was proposing is, that gives us a week to look at it as a group. Do you all want more time than that? I mean, that should be,
No.
yeah. And so we'll have comments to you on the 24th.
Okay.
Or that week of the 24th, and then you can tell us then either the 8th or the follow-up meeting of the 22nd.
That'd be fine.
Either one is, it doesn't matter. We don't necessarily want to push you either without reason. I know you are getting busy this time of year too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we will, if y'all would do that,
Or
would be
say
great.
4:30.
Yeah, y'all can
And I think
pick.
that'll be a better outcome all the way
Yeah.
around.
We'll get our comments back to you the week of the 24th and then go from there.
Man, it takes about a
Can
half
I
an
ask a
hour.
question? It might be the time to ask the question or not, but where you had in there Vision 2043. I mean, I've been here 400 years, but Vision 2020 was a really great thing that we did, I think, as a city, way back in the day with Mayor Bowling when he was here, where if you came, you're doing this with us, but I mean, the citizens could
Right, there was a
have-
community-
I'm
I
just
remember-
saying, do a community vision and let them go room to room and say, hey, I'd like this, or I would like that, because even at the women's thing the other night, a lot of people were saying, when can we have a say, or do we have a say? And I'm just thinking, that Vision 2020 was great, and then you
Yes.
could add it in as a part of what the citizens want, and I mean, I think the department heads, maybe a section just for them, or not department heads, the employees, what do they think the city needs to be?
Yep.
They're in it every day, they're working in it every day.
And generally, they're the ones implementing
They're the
every
ones
day.
doing it.
I think,
So, I
Donna,
mean, I
you
think-
and I, both, I know I've looked at that document a lot over
It's
the,
a great
over time.
document, yeah.
What we should do is make that one of the initiatives that we want to accomplish.
Right, that's why I thought, do you
Right.
add it in here, or do you
We
add it?
can.
I just think that would be something we should do, and it could be done quickly if
I,
you
I
had
think
somebody
that's a
moderate it.
good thing to work on, and it will take a while to do that because it will, so as a comp plan's being developed through that process, try to work towards a vision 2040 or 2050 or whatever you want to call it.
I think people would
2050.
get excited about it,
But-
you know? So I think we should
Do you want me to add that into this
It's up to
document
them.
somewhere? Where do you want it?
That's just my comment.
Initiatives and priorities, do it on page 9 on that chart.
Yep.
And give us the 24, or 25 year, 25, call that to, but by the time you get done with that, we want to have it completed.
Oh, I was sort of saying, no, we don't have to wait till 25.
No. We want to have it, the estimated completion year, say, you know, because I'm trying to align it with the comp plan, that's the reason I said that. Because, I mean, you'll
Well,
start.
yeah, you're going to be engaging people at that
You're
time
going to be,
anyway.
you're going to be engaging
good
people, that's going to
opportunity.
take a little bit.
Would you want to add that, instead of creating a new bullet point, just add that to the comp plan update bullet point as part of it?
Well,
It's a little
That's
different, what
different,
Donna's talking
yeah.
about is
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
it's
And we,
actually-
and we do see, Donna, in several communities where we've done like a work plan like this, then, you know, the mayor and the council or commissioners will say, you know, we really ought to broaden this. So this gives us something that we're working toward, but let's follow that and create a series of public listening sessions and let people get involved after they've heard kind of what our vision is, and then let's get theirs and move forward.
It's the same thing with the comp plan. At 90% of the time, people don't understand, or they forget, and they feel like you're sneaking up on everybody. And it will contribute to community understanding and buy-in of actually what you're trying to do,
Right,
right? And when you do that, then there's less confusion,
right.
you know?
Because like Kevin said, when you say strategic plan or master plan or streetscape plan or downtown plan, everybody thinks it's done.
Right.
And like at the meeting the other night, you know, people who were like on the streetscape plan, it's like, well, it's not done. It's sort of like Millennium Park Plan that's been sitting on a shelf for 1992 that was redone, and everything in there is not done. Very few things are, you know, it's just a plan. So, path forward, so.
So is it fair to say that, does everyone agree that on that last table, that I add a point that says like a 2043 strategic plan for the city?
Let's go with round numbers. Call it like a 2050
Okay.
plan.
All right.
Vision 2050.
Should we-
Gotcha.
should we-
Yeah, that's a good thing to start
Like a
with.
Vision
Oh, that's
2050 community work plan?
Or strategic, I would call it a strategic plan.
Yeah,
And they just-
that's what
Because
it
it
is.
Should
truly
we
is.
put it on page 8, though? Because it should be a budgetary impact as soon as we can. We need to get it started.
Yeah,
Was
he
that-
did.
I think Wilma will still be here.
So, Mayor, which page are
I
you?
think page 8, because yeah, these are, to me, it's ought to be 24, 26. Get it started now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Put it on page 8, I think.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and I was gonna put Vision 2050. And the key is that we're gonna take it out to the community as a working plan.
Is it this page? I'll make sure I got it on the right one. There we go.
Are they, see, I think this is more long-term, this is more immediate, I thought. That's what I was
So,
thinking.
yeah, well, what we did, we went through as we were talking about budget years to start and all
Right,
that, we grouped them, and then we had these left over, so we just called them various budget years because some of them start
Yeah,
23, some,
right.
okay?
Yeah, I think, that page, this one, yeah.
Yep.
Because that's the shorter, that's.
Gotcha.
Start it this year?
Well, that's why I want to put it on page 8, though, see, this page.
Okay.
These are the more pressing ones right here.
Yep.
Again, that was a good point, good conversation.
Yep.
And that's the good thing about this commission, is that the men and women both feel comfortable about having input and asking questions and making comments and insulting the mayor and all that kind of good stuff. And that's okay. That's what makes it work. So I think we've had a good session this morning. I want to go back to the thing about staff. Staff needs to have some input into this before we go public with this. And then once it goes public, it'll be a draft or it'll be a final document because the community's going to want to have some input to it because we've been meeting and we've been saying we're working on budget. Really haven't said to the community that we're working on a strategic plan. I think to some folks in the community, those are two different things. So got to be real careful how we address things that we do.
We have a management team meeting next Tuesday morning. What I was thinking, I was trying to make sure I had enough time. What we may do is do the similar exercise at the management team meeting.
Okay.
And that way we've got time as a group. Don't you guys think that'll work good as, just to all sit down? We'll commit to doing that next Tuesday morning. Yeah. And that way we align ourselves with the 24th too. Yeah.
And at the same time, there's no doubt that we have forgotten or we've missed some things because it's just the five of us. So that's why it's important to me to have that input from the rest of the staff.
All right, for my final comments, I would like to say thank you. And I think we've had a very productive morning. And this is exactly the kind of outcome that you hope for when you go into a process like this. So thank you for your diligence and, your feedback.
Well, and on behalf of the commission and the staff, we want to thank you and KLC for your willingness to work with us again. And,
Sarah, don't forget Sarah.
and Sarah, that's right, don't forget Sarah.
Oh, yes,
well,
she's
and-
been working.
Well, and the other part of this is that, you come in, you help us do all this strategic planning, and then so as you leave Danville today, I want you to give you some homework. You and Sarah come up with all the money that we need to implement all these things in this plan. That's the next thing that we want. We want some help with the finances, right? No, but
We're
again,
community
seriously,
and
thank you
development
guys.
We're community and economic development folks. We are not rainmakers or magicians. But we will help you all we can on that, Mayor.
Well, you always say you spend a little time in Danville, you spend a little money in Danville, so I appreciate that.
Yes, sir, we do every time we come.
I know.
All right?
Commissioners, you all have anything else?
Nope, appreciate it.
Well, we entertain a motion to adjourn?
Move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Nobody wants to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those who oppose say nay. Let's go home. Thank you all for a good meeting.